Most Americans know the first verse of the Star-Spangled Banner by heart. It's sung at baseball games, presidential inaugurations, and school assemblies. But what many people don't realize is that the anthem has a much more complicated and uncomfortable backstory. The lyrics were written in 1814 by Francis Scott Key during the War of 1812. He was watching from a ship as British forces bombarded Fort McHenry near Baltimore. When he saw the American flag still flying the next morning, he wrote a poem, and that poem later became the national anthem. But the controversy starts with what's not usually sung. Just about all public performances only include the first verse, the one that ends with "Land of the free and the home of the brave." But there's a third verse, rarely performed, that contains a line many find troubling. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. Many scholars suggest the line likely refers to enslaved people who joined the British, like through the colonial Marines who were offered freedom. Others say it could also refer more broadly to British soldiers, hirelings, and their allies, including escaped enslaved people in a derogatory sense. This verse itself wasn't widely discussed for much of U.S. history, but in more recent years it's come under the spotlight, especially during debates about racial injustice. Critics argue that an anthem with this kind of language, even in its lesser-known verses, doesn't represent all Americans equally. Francis Scott Key himself was a slaveholder who once described Africans in America as a distinct and inferior race. While he opposed the international slave trade, he also supported sending free black people back to Africa. But his views on domestic slavery were conflicted. He did free some enslaved people, yet defended the institution and opposed immediate abolition. That context only adds fuel to those who call for the anthem to be reconsidered or replaced. South Africa's national anthem is unique in the world, and one of the most politically loaded. It's not just one song, it's two anthems stitched together, in 5 languages, meant to represent a nation that was once brutally divided. Let's rewind to the apartheid era, a time when South Africa was officially segregated by race, with the white minority in power. Back then, the national anthem was Die Stem van Suid-Afrika, the Call of South Africa. Its lyrics, written in Afrikaans, celebrated the land of the Afrikaner heritage, resonating with the white minority in power. And so for millions, it became a sort of soundtrack of oppression. After all, it was played as black South Africans were denied basic rights. But in the townships and protest marches, a different song rose up, Nkosi Sikelel Afrika, or God Bless Africa. Originally a Christian hymn from the 1890s, it became the unofficial anthem of the liberation struggle. Sung in Xhosa and Zulu, it was banned under apartheid, but still echoed at funerals, rallies, and secret gatherings. To many, it symbolized hope and resistance. When apartheid ended in 1994, Nelson Mandela faced an impossible choice. Which anthem would the new South Africa sing? Keep Die Stem and alienate the oppressed? Drop it completely and inflame the former ruling class? The solution was a hybrid, blending both songs into a single anthem. It begins with Nkosi Sikelel Afrika in African languages, then transitions into Die Stem in Afrikaans and English. On paper, it's a powerful gesture of unity. In practice, it's still deeply divisive. Those opposed say the inclusion of Die Stem honors a regime responsible for decades of racial injustice. Supporters say the hybrid reflects South Africa's complex history, acknowledging past pain without erasing it. Even today, when the anthem is played at international events, reactions can be mixed. Some sing it proudly, others fall silent when Die Stem begins. In the end, South Africa's anthem is a tightrope, balancing memory and reconciliation, pain and progress. Russia's national anthem has one of the most dramatic comebacks in history, not just because of its music, but because of what it represents. The melody was composed in 1938 by Alexander Alexandrov, originally for a Bolshevik hymn, and became the Soviet national anthem in 1944, replacing the Internationale. With lyrics added under Stalin's direction, the anthem praised the Communist Party, Soviet unity, and, not subtly, Stalin himself. It was bold, booming, and unmistakably grand, a soundtrack for an empire. But after Stalin's passing, and the fall of the USSR decades later, the anthem was dropped. In the 1990s, Russia adopted a new anthem, patriotic song, based on a melody by the 19th century composer Mikhail Glinka. Intended as a clean break from the Soviet past, it lacked official lyrics due to disputes, often leaving it performed instrumentally. But there was just one problem. Nobody liked it. It didn't resonate with the Russian public, especially older generations who still remembered the Soviet anthem with a strange mix of nostalgia and pride. Even athletes at the Olympics were reportedly confused, standing in silence during medal ceremonies, unsure what to sing. So, in 2000, Vladimir Putin made a bold move. He brought back the Soviet anthem's melody, but with new lyrics that removed all references to communism. The revamped version praised Russia's vast land, its unity, and its strength, but avoided naming any leaders or political ideologies. Still, the change sparked debate. Supporters said the melody was iconic, a piece of national identity too powerful to discard. Critics saw it differently. They believed reviving the Soviet tune sent a message that Russia wasn't trying to move forward. It was trying to rewind the past. Even today, the anthem feels like a bridge between eras. On one hand, it evokes pride and resilience. On the other, it stirs memories of censorship, repression, and the Cold War. In a way, Russia's anthem is like its politics. Powerful, symbolic, and never entirely free from its Soviet shadow. At just 32 syllables long, Kimigayo is one of the shortest national anthems in the world, but don't let its length fool you. It's also one of the most controversial. The lyrics date back over 1,000 years. Originally a court poem, Kimigayo was later adapted into a national anthem during the late 1800s, when Japan was transforming from a feudal society into a modern empire. The song was meant to express loyalty to the emperor, and that's where the trouble begins. The central line, Kimigayo wa chiyo ni yachiyo ni, translates to something like, "May your reign continue for 8,000 generations." In other words, it's a blessing for eternal imperial rule. During World War II, Kimigayo became the musical emblem of Japan's militaristic expansion. It was sung at rallies, military send-offs, and ceremonies promoting national unity, which, at the time, often meant obedience and sacrifice for the emperor. After Japan's surrender in 1945, the anthem became deeply tied to memories of war, colonialism, and suffering across Asia. And yet, Japan didn't officially declare Kimigayo its national anthem until 1990. Over 50 years after the war ended. That move, pushed through by a conservative government, reopened old wounds. Critics said that the song glorified Japan's imperial past and was out of step with modern democratic society. And the controversy hasn't faded. In Japanese schools, teachers are often required to stand and sing the national anthem during ceremonies. Some have refused, not out of disrespect, but out of conscience. Several were even punished or lost their jobs, leading to lawsuits that went all the way to the Supreme Court of Japan. The rulings mostly upheld the government's right to enforce anthem protocol, but the battle over Kimigayo still continues in classrooms and public debate. Even beyond Japan, Kimigayo is viewed with suspicion by some neighboring countries, especially China and Korea, where the scars of Japan's wartime aggression are still raw. Fans of the anthem say it's a neutral tradition, a historical poem set to peaceful music. But to some, Kimigayo is not just a song. It's a lingering symbol of a time when loyalty to the emperor came before everything else. La Marseillaise sounds like a triumphant call to arms, and that's exactly what it is. But beneath its soaring melody lies a history of violence, rebellion, and revolutionary zeal that has made it one of the most powerful and polarizing anthems in the world. It was written in 1792, during the height of the French Revolution. France was at war with Austria. The monarchy was teetering, and revolutionaries were calling ordinary citizens to rise up. A young army officer, Claude-Joseph Roger de Lille, composed the anthem overnight. Originally titled War Song for the Army of the Rhine, it was quickly adopted by volunteer troops from Marseille, who marched into Paris singing it. And that's how it got its name, La Marseillaise. The song is raw, intense, and unapologetically violent. One of its most infamous lines urges, "Let an impure blood water our furrows." That's not a metaphor. It reflects the revolutionary belief that freedom is something you have to fight for, sometimes brutally. For centuries, La Marseillaise had been embraced as a symbol of resistance. It was even banned under Napoleon, revived during revolutions, and sung by French partisans in World War II. But in peacetime, its message hasn't always aged well. Those who are critics, especially in modern France, argue that the anthem glorifies violence and promotes an us versus them mentality. It's also said to be focused too much on war and bloodshed to represent the country's values of peace and tolerance today. The debate is especially sensitive in multicultural France, where some communities feel alienated by the anthem's militant nationalism. Still, defenders insist that La Marseillaise is more than a war song. To them, it represents the spirit of 1789, a refusal to bow to tyranny, a declaration that freedom is worth defending. And despite all the controversy, it remains one of the most recognizable and emotionally charged national anthems in the world. And when a stadium full of French citizens sing it, fists raised, it's not just about patriotism. It's about history, identity, and the deep, sometimes dangerous, power of music. Israel's national anthem, Hatikvah, means the hope, and for many, that's exactly what it symbolizes, the centuries-long dream of a Jewish homeland. But for others, especially Israel's Arab citizens, it represents something far more complicated. The lyrics were written in the 1880s by Naftali Herz Imber, a Jewish poet from Eastern Europe, and set to a melody adapted from a Romanian folk tune. Long before the State of Israel existed, Hatikvah captured the spirit of the early Zionist movement, a call for Jews scattered across the world to return to their ancestral land. The opening lines say, "As long as in the heart within, the Jewish soul still yearns." And later, "Our hope is not yet lost, to be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem." It became Israel's national anthem in 1948 upon the state's founding, serving as the de facto anthem, and was officially codified as the national anthem in 2004. For many Israelis, especially Jewish citizens, it's deeply emotional, a reminder of survival, resilience, and cultural rebirth after centuries of exile, pogroms, and ultimately the Holocaust. But the controversy lies in what and who is not included. Roughly 20% of Israel's population is Arab, mostly Palestinian Muslims and Christians who are citizens of the state. For them, Hatikvah can feel alienating. The anthem speaks only of the Jewish soul and makes no reference to broader citizenry, shared values, or multi-ethnic identity of the country. Arab members of Israel's parliament have stood silently or walked out during performances of the anthem. At public events, the question of whether to sing Hatikvah often becomes a flashpoint, a test of loyalty, identity, or protest, depending on one's perspective. Those against it argue that a truly inclusive national anthem should reflect all of a country's people, not just one group, even if that group is the majority. Fans of the anthem counter that Israel was founded explicitly as a Jewish state, and that Hatikvah reflects its historic mission, not just its current demographics. This debate touches on some of the deepest questions in Israeli society. Can a country be both Jewish and democratic? And if so, what song can everyone sing together? Turkey's national anthem doesn't hold back. İstiklâl Marşı, meaning the Independence March, is fierce, poetic, and intensely patriotic. For some, it's also too militaristic, too religious, and too exclusive for a modern, diversive republic. The anthem was written in 1921, in the middle of Turkey's War of Independence. The Ottoman Empire had collapsed after World War I, and Turkish forces were fighting foreign occupiers to build a new nation. The lyrics by poet and politician Mehmet Akif Ersoy reflect that urgency, full of vivid imagery, national pride, and spiritual devotion. Lines like, "Fear not, for the crimson flag that proudly waves in the dawn shall not fade," and references to the blood of martyrs that sanctifies the nation's struggle capture the mood of a country literally being fought into existence. There's no question that the anthem inspired people at the time, but today its message raises difficult questions. For one, İstiklâl Marşı is deeply religious. It references God, martyrdom, and divine protection. This reflects the belief of its author and the context of its creation, but it sits uncomfortably in a nation that was officially secular for most of the 20th century. Some secular Turks have questioned whether a national anthem should sound more like a prayer than a civic declaration. Others point out how the anthem overlooks Turkey's ethnic and religious minorities, especially Kurds, Alevis, and non-Muslims, who often feel excluded by its tone and content. Then there's the militant language. Glorifying bloodshed, death, and martyrdom is out of step with modern democratic values. The anthem doesn't mention freedom of expression, civic unity, or peace, just victory, sacrifice, and loyalty to the homeland. Supporters, on the other hand, argue that the İstiklâl Marşı is sacred, a historical artifact from Turkey's most critical moment of survival. To them, rewriting or replacing it would be unthinkable, even disrespectful. So, while the anthem remains a powerful symbol of Turkish identity, it also reveals a deep tension between faith and secularism, unity and diversity, past and present, all packed into two passionate verses. Iran's national anthem is short, stern, and unmistakably political. It was adopted in 1990, a year after the passing of Ayatollah Khomeini, reflecting the ideology of the Islamic Republic he founded. The full title in Persian is Soroud-e Melli-ye Jomhouri-ye Eslami-ye Iran, which translates directly to the national anthem of the Islamic Republic of Iran. That alone signals its purpose, to define Iran not just as a country, but as a theocratic state. The lyrics are packed with revolutionary messaging, proclaiming the rise of the Islamic Republic as a beacon of justice and unity, with lines like, "Upwards on the horizon rises the eastern sun, the light in the eyes of the believers in justice." They emphasize martyrdom and resistance against enemies, but that freedom, in practice, refers to independence from Western powers, not necessarily political freedom for its own citizens. The anthem replaces an earlier revolutionary song from 1979, which had been adopted after the Shah was overthrown. The current anthem was carefully crafted to project strength, unity, and devotion to the Islamic system, not just Iran as a geographic or cultural entity. And that's what makes it controversial. To supporters of the Islamic Republic, the anthem is a proud expression of defiance and divine guidance. But to critics, both inside and outside of Iran, it's a symbol of religious authoritarianism and the suppression of dissent. Unlike many anthems that highlight the people or the land, this one centers on the system itself, the Islamic Republic, as the object of loyalty. Many Iranians in exile, secular citizens, and members of opposition movements reject the anthem entirely. At protests both inside Iran and abroad, descendants often refuse to sing it or replace it with pre-revolutionary songs that emphasize Persian identity over Islamic ideology. Even the anthem's sound is striking, composed in a martial, almost solemn tone. It lacks the sweeping emotion of many national anthems. It seems to be more of a statement than a celebration. In a nation where politics and religion are fused, this 2-minute song becomes a powerful and divisive line in the sand. Germany's national anthem is one of the most quietly controversial in the world, not because of the version sung today, but, like America's Star-Spangled Banner, because of the verses that are not. The anthem is officially titled Das Lied der Deutschen, or The Song of the Germans, written in 1841 by poet August Heinrich Hoffmann van Fallersleben. At the time, Germany wasn't a unified country. It was a patchwork of kingdoms, duchies, and city-states. The lyrics were a call for unity, democracy, and national identity. So far, not exactly scandalous. But the problem starts with the opening line of the original first verse. Deutschland, Deutschland über alles. Germany, Germany above all. Today, that line is loaded with historical baggage. During the Nazi era, this verse was heavily promoted and used to justify aggressive expansionism, turning a call for unity into a slogan for domination. The melody, composed by Joseph Haydn in the 18th century, was also adopted as part of the Nazi propaganda machine. And after World War II, this association made the anthem radioactive. So what did Germany do? After the war, the first and second verses were quietly shelved. Today, only the third verse is used, and it's radically different. It focuses on unity, justice, and freedom, with no mention of supremacy or borders. The title remains the same, and the melody hasn't changed, and that's why the anthem still makes some people uneasy. Even today, when someone mistakenly sings the band version at a sports event or state ceremony, it can trigger international outrage. That actually happened in 2017, when a US singer accidentally performed the band verse before a tennis match in Hawaii. German players and fans were dismayed, and the incident made headlines worldwide. In modern Germany, the anthem is a compromise, keeping tradition while cutting ties with the darkest parts of the past. China's national anthem, March of the Volunteers, sounds like something from an old war film, and in many ways, that's exactly what it is. It's loud, urgent, and defiant, with lyrics like, "Arise, ye who refuse to be slaves." It was written in 1935, during a time when China was facing invasion by Imperial Japan. The music was composed by Ni and the lyrics were penned by poet Tian Han, both figures connected to leftist revolutionary movements. The song debuted in a patriotic war film and quickly became an anthem of resistance. In 1949, after the Chinese Communist Party won the Civil War and founded the People's Republic of China, March of the Volunteers was chosen as the official anthem. But with a twist. The original lyricist, Tian Han, had been purged during the Cultural Revolution and died in prison. During the Cultural Revolution, after Tian Han's persecution, the anthem's original lyrics were suppressed, and it was often performed instrumentally or with altered words from 1970 to 1978. The original lyrics were restored in 1978 and officially reinstated in 1982. To many Chinese citizens today, it's a powerful symbol of sovereignty and strength. But for those not so crazy about it, especially outside the country, it's tied closely to the Chinese state's authoritarian posture. In particular, the line, "The Chinese nation faces its greatest danger," has been used in modern times to justify policies of strict control and national unity, even at the expense of dissent. The anthem has also become a flashpoint in Hong Kong. After massive protests erupted there in 2019, people began singing their own anthem, Glory to Hong Kong, as a form of resistance. In response, China passed a national security law and criminalized insults to March of the Volunteers. In Hong Kong, booing or parodying the anthem can now lead to jail time under the 2020 National Anthem law. In 2022, when Glory to Hong Kong was mistakenly played instead of the anthem at a rugby match in South Korea, it triggered diplomatic backlash from China. So what are your thoughts on these national anthems? We see a common theme in many of them where the controversy lies in respecting history versus respecting a country's changed priorities or demographics or culture. I'd love to hear your take on it. Which is your favorite? Which of these tunes do you like? Let us know in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please give us a like. It really helps the channel. And there should be another video on your screen right now that YouTube thinks you might like, so check it out. Thanks for watching. See you next time.